Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming to Santa Barbara. I hope that you all stay long and spend lots of money because we need your sales tax to support our offices. This morning, let me just say that give you a little game plan here in terms of what you can expect. I'm going to make a couple opening remarks to set down the process rules. Then I'm going to introduce Sheriff Jim Anderson standing next to me, and Sheriff Anderson will make a statement. Then I have a few things to say from the legal perspective on the case that I think might help satisfy some of your answers. And then at that point, the sheriff and I are going to take questions. We will take a reasonable amount of questions until it becomes either redundant or we're out. And at that point, we'll give you a warning, like I guess they do on the real things. You got 2 more to say or something like that. So first of all, in terms of the process, as I indicated, the format will be the sheriff is going to talk, I'm going to talk, then we'll do the questions and answers. So I really would appreciate it, and I don't think this will be a problem because we're going to stick around, is to save your questions until after we've completed our, at least what we consider canned remarks, or whatever you call it in your industry. Secondly, although I realize, just like I hope most of you all realize, we have different roles and responsibilities in connection with what we do in this, and we all know that this is a very serious situation, that we're not going to answer questions involving the specifics of this case and the timelines of this case or the names of the people involved in this case. I think probably most of you as veteran reporters understand the reason that we're not doing this. We're not trying to be difficult, but this is an ongoing investigation, and I think that's something that the sheriff and I feel very strongly about. So to the extent that you try to do your jobs and pry that kind of information out of us, I think you're going to find us to be a tough sell. Thirdly, in the future, many of you have generously called both the sheriff and I to appear on all kinds of programs from, I won't even announce it, so I don't want to give them any publicity, but all of the high prime time talk show things. And I want you to know, so that you all know, so you don't waste your time and your producer's time, anybody else's time, the sheriff and I are not going on any TV programs. We are not going to be making any public statements about this case except in a press conference format. All future information about the case will come out of Chris Pappas, Chris is the PIO for the Sheriff's Department, or on the websites of either department. We both have websites. We're not trying to be difficult, but I think you have to understand the sheriff and I have a responsibility to the citizens of this county. We have busy schedules in terms of what we're doing and the cases that we're handling and other investigations, and we just can't have our switchboards taken down trying to answer press inquiries. I think we're trying to be reasonable and set up a process that can help you do your job while we can continue to do our job to protect the citizens of Santa Barbara County. And I hope you'll understand that. Without further ado, as they say, I want to introduce to you a good friend of mine and the current sheriff of Santa Barbara County, Jim Anderson. Sheriff.
Thank you, Tom. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yesterday morning at around 8:30 a.m., investigators from the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Department, Santa Barbara District Attorney's Office, served a search warrant at Neverland Ranch in Los Olivos. Simultaneous to the service of the warrant at Neverland Ranch, 2 search warrants were also served in Southern California. Approximately 70 investigators from the Sheriff's Department and the District Attorney's Office were involved in the service of this warrant at Neverland Ranch. The operation was concluded around 11 p.m. last night. The service of the warrants was part of an ongoing investigation alleging criminal misconduct on the part of Michael Jackson. The basis for this investigation regarding Mr. Jackson involves allegations of child molestation, 288A of the California Penal Code. Additionally, an arrest warrant for Mr. Jackson has been issued on multiple counts of child molestation. The bail amount on the warrant has been set at $3 million. At this point in time, Mr. Jackson's been given an opportunity to surrender himself to the custody of the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Department within a specified period of time. We are currently working with Mr. Jackson's legal representation on this matter. Mr. Jackson has also been directed to surrender his passport when he's taken into custody. While we appreciate the level of interest generated by this case, the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Department is committed to maintaining the integrity of this investigation with respects to both legal and ethical considerations. We will not be commenting on issues specific to the investigation beyond what has already been released.
Thank you, Jim. Let me just add a few things to what the sheriff has said from the perspective of the district attorney's office, and we do have some releases in writing that you can get. Either they've been passed out already or you'll get them afterwards. Commonly in these kinds of cases, but let me clarify something because some of you aren't lawyers and I don't want you to get it wrong. There's a 288 and there's a 288A. There's a 288 paren small a, which is the child molesting section. 288A is another offense. Just so you all understand, we are talking about a violation of 288 paren small a, child molesting, not oral copulation of an adult or of children, okay? So that's, I want to clarify that so that you understand that. Secondly, ordinarily, sometimes I'm either my staff or myself are asked in cases like this what the penalties are. In California, we have the determinate sentence. The determinate sentence means that the legislature set a time frame upon conviction if, worst case scenario, the judge decides to send a person to state prison. In this particular case, the triad is 3 years, 6 years, and 8 years. So the minimum would be 3, the maximum would be 8 for the single count. We are filing multiple counts, so potentially, if we get to the point where there is a conviction and a sentencing, the judge would have the discretion at that point to give multiple consecutive sentences, and the limits on the judge at that point are 1/3 of the middle term, which would be an additional 2 years, you can do the math, for each additional one consecutive. That is not mandatory, it's discretionary. I'm not suggesting to you that any of this could happen, but I'm asked routinely what is the outside worst case scenario, and I'm just trying to give you that. I don't want anybody to imply from anything that I've said or any remarks that I said that any one of those things is going to happen, but that's just what the sentencing time frames are. One thing I want to emphasize, and I'm saying this because I couldn't resist the temptation to watch a little bit of some of this coverage last night on TV. And I heard a lot of apologists for Mr. Jackson say some things that I think the sheriff and I can talk about that I think are important for you as the media and for the public who is going to hear these things to be told. I heard a lot of people saying it was deja vu. I heard a lot of people saying it was another ripoff by some family to get money. I want to make several things clear about why this is different from the last investigation. Number one, it is different because the law in California has changed, and it was changed specifically because of the 1993-94 Michael Jackson investigation. The law in California at that time provided that a child victim could not be forced to testify in a child molest proceedings without their permission and consent and cooperation. As a result of the Michael Jackson case, the legislature changed that law, and that is no longer the law in California. Secondly, as you all know, or most of you know, either from being involved or knowing about that investigation, there were never any charges brought in that investigation. No warrant issued. There is a warrant outstanding, and I can assure you that within a very short period of time, there will be charges filed against Mr. Jackson, multiple counts. That's different. Third, at the time of the investigation back, now I just hit somebody off, but it's TV Aztec, whoever you are. I'm sorry, I apologize. Just got carried away here. It won't, there's no room up here. You folks have, I'll just hang on. It doesn't make it worse. Then I don't have to worry about knocking any more off. Yeah. All right, third. Here we go. Third is that at the time of the investigation in 1993 and 94, as those of you who have followed that know, there was a contemporaneous civil case that was filed by attorney Larry Feldman in Los Angeles. And that case was filed almost immediately at the same time that our office and the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office was notified of the allegations, and we commenced our investigations. That civil case culminated prior to the completion of our investigation. And I say completion because at the time that that civil settlement went down, the victim indicated to us that they were no longer interested in cooperating criminally. There is no civil case filed, and there is no anticipation that there will be a civil case filed in this particular case. And the last reason that this is different, in this particular case, we have a cooperative victim in this particular proceeding. So I think there's some things that are very different about what's going on today and what occurred before. Another thing that I think that the sheriff and I feel concerned that we want to clarify about allegations that we've heard. There's been, Jackson himself, I believe, has said that this was all done to try to ruin his new CD that was coming out or whatever it is he's doing. Like the sheriff and I really are into that kind of music. But the fact of the, and all my kids are grown now pretty much, so, but the fact of the matter is, what you need to know is that in actuality, we had no knowledge of that prior to the time that we determined the date of the execution of this. And in fact, we were going to execute these warrants several weeks ago, but had to put it off because of all the visitors we had come up here, the 50,000 people that came in for Halloween. So it really has nothing to do with his album or whatever else he's doing in his life. We don't track him. So I think it's important for people to know that. We've been ready to do this for some period of time, and it was just an operational thing within the Sheriff's Department because of the tremendous manpower, person power that they had to put out for the Halloween thing. And the last question before we'll open it up is, I know you're probably going to ask some questions about Child Protective Services, both in Los Angeles and Santa Barbara. Child Protective Services, at this point in time, is not involved in these investigations. There were some previous contacts by folks in the Los Angeles Child Protective Services involving some other things that came out when the, don't assume from that I'm talking about the same family. I'm just telling you there was Child Protective Services involvement and other allegations involving Mr. Jackson in Los Angeles. And there has been no involvement on either one of those departments and any one of those things involving any of that information. This has solely been an operation run by the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Department, and I have been advising them, and the members of my staff have been advising them on the legal issues involved in the investigation. Whether they will get involved, obviously that there's going to be, at least the local Santa Barbara people, where it's pertinent, will be notified of it, and what they do, they do. Just so some of you who are really sharp understand, in Santa Barbara, the DA's office handles the 300 petitions, so we will be conflicting out of that and having the court request that they appoint other counsel so that there's no allegations that we're involved in that process and get information from that process, and it's an arm length. And we build a firewall involved in that, so it's just a different thing. We will not be involved in that. There'll be separate counsel appointed to represent the Department of Child Services in Santa Barbara. Sheriff, did you have anything you wanted to add before we open them up?
Just that we have copies of the news release this morning to provide to you, both from the Sheriff's Department and the District Attorney's Office. And I will go ahead and open it up for
Could
questions.
Jackson be a flight risk? Could he be a flight risk?
There's always that potential, but we are actively pursuing the arrest warrant at this time.
Mr. Attorney, why are you waiting to file charges? Are you waiting to see if, in fact, he cooperates and surrenders vis-a-vis you have to go arrest him?
No, it doesn't have anything to do with it. The filing of the charges had nothing to do with that. I know it may seem simple to people to get together a search warrant for several different places and stuff like that, but it's just a matter of a decision that we made to do a Ramey warrant, an affidavit, get a judicial authorization, and it gives us time to go back and do the formal charging at another time. That's all it was. It was just, we're not going to discuss the time frame for surrender. All right.
We're going to go
Way
one
in
at
the
a
back.
time. One at a time.
Taken away from him, Mr. Smith.
I'm begging pardon?
Could Michael Jackson's children be taken away from him?
That's a decision that would be made by a juvenile court.
Where were the other two search warrants served? Do you know where he is?
No.
Sir, can you
No, we do
talk
not.
about the other two search warrants, please?
I beg your pardon?
You mentioned two other search warrants that Southern California.
Yes, there were two other warrants.
Details of those, please.
I'm not going to get into the detail of those, but we did serve two in Southern California. and we did acquire additional property.
Talk about what, when, where, why?
It was yesterday, same time as the search warrant was served here in Santa Barbara County.
In general terms, sir, can you just talk about in general what you all were looking for?
Items of evidence that would corroborate the victim's statements.
As much as you can talk about, can you say what you all believe happened and why the evidence was compelling enough to issue an arrest warrant?
We're not going to get into specifics of the case.
When did this 12-year-old's parents come forward?
we wanna-
When were you notified?
We want to clarify something. There is an affidavit in this particular case, and that affidavit has been sealed for 45 days and will not be released for 45 days in order for us to complete the investigation.
When did this start? When did it start?
Whose affidavit?
All right, this gentleman here has a question.
Yes, when did this start? When did this 12-year-old's parents come forward and notify you?
You assumed things that we haven't said, okay? So we're not going to answer that
Sir,
question.
we learned that it was Attorney Larry Feldman who caused the boy to come to the sheriff's office and talk to the DA's office. Can you confirm that your office has had discussions with Attorney Larry Feldman?
No.
Sir,
Has your office had
you've
discussions?
asked him to surrender his passport. How realistically do you think it is that he might flee overseas?
Well, there's always that possibility, but I believe he's willing to cooperate with us and turn over his passport at this point.
Sheriff, is Mark Garagos representing Mr. Jackson? Is Mr. Garagos representing Mr. Jackson?
I believe that is correct.
That's what was represented to me in my conversation with him.
You said this was multiple counts. Over what period of time did this occur?
We're not going to discuss that.
One year?
Not going to discuss
Have
that.
Jackson's children been taken into protective custody already?
What children?
His own children?
They're not within the, at this point in time, they're not in California.
Is there a possibility of any other victims, just one gentleman?
Yes, there is that possibility, and we would encourage the public to come forward if they have any information whatsoever that would lead us to believe there are other victims in the community to contact us so that we can follow up on that information.
Gentlemen, how many counts
Are
are
these
there?
multiple counts only involving the one child?
I'm not going to answer that. This lady right here with her hand up in the white.
Can you compel him to testify? I just wanted to know, if you do not know where Michael Jackson is at this moment, then how soon, like, if he doesn't turn himself in by a certain time, what will then happen? And how long is that time designated to have himself?
You'll know about it when it gets there.
How sure are you?
given special treatment because of this arrangement to turn himself
Hold on.
John, you're the worst person to be asking that question because you know in this county that we have traditionally done that for other people as a courtesy.
Would you do it for any member
And
of
we've
the
done it
public?
for other people
Would you
and
do
we're
it for
not
any
doing
member of the
anything
public?
different. You know that.
Would you do it for any member of the public?
We have.
An arrangement to turn themselves in
Depending
so
on
that
the
they don't be seen with handcuffs on.
Depending on, we haven't
On a
said that.
case-by-case
Are you
basis,
confident that
yes.
your victim's willing to testify this time?
Yes.
Why is
The
that?
allegations stem from the documentary?
You mentioned multiple counts.
How many counts are
How
there?
many counts?
I'm not going to say.
And why won't you say that if there's more than one child now or not? Why?
I'm not.
Will there be a charging document released?
Yes, when we file it.
Hold on. This gentleman back here.
Is the district attorney's office right now in any sort of deal making with Michael Jackson's attorneys, whoever is there any sort of deal, talking about a surrender, a possible deal, anything like that?
A deal to surrender himself or a deal?
Well, let's talk about both.
I wouldn't comment on either one of those, but we've been in contact with his lawyer.
Is he in Las Vegas as we've been hearing?
I'm sorry?
Is he still in Las Vegas?
I don't know. I mean, we really have a life other than Michael Jackson, and we've been really trying to work on our investigation. As you well know, because I saw it on TV before I came down here, the last word I had on somebody standing out front of a hotel was that he was still there. But then there was some other people who said they saw him leave last night. So that, you get these conflicting testimonies about what's going on.
Sir, you have dealt with the Jackson case for so long. You've been involved with this case.
Hold on a second. Let him
You have
answer the
dealt with
question.
this case for a number of years. You were involved 10 years ago. Can you talk about your satisfaction in finally bringing Michael Jackson, in your mind, to justice? And can you talk about, do you feel he has a problem dealing with children?
All right, first of all, I haven't been dealing with Michael Jackson for anything. When that case went to bed 10 years ago, it was out of my mind. You folks and people keep calling every time he does a bizarre thing to ask me my comment about it. But I really do have a lot of things going on, as does the sheriff and his former sheriff and people in my office. We really have a very busy office. I haven't given it a passing thought. My feelings about this is that I'm sad that there is another victim out there. I feel bad for the family. I feel bad for the victim. Beyond that, I think it's a sad thing for all the people involved in this thing. Quite
But
frankly.
isn't there a sense in your office that perhaps he bought his way out of those charges 10 years ago, and now you may have the goods?
That he bought his way out?
Is there a sense in your office that he bought that?
I think there's a sense in the public he did that. Why laid off on me and my office?
Hold on, this lady back here. Go ahead.
Did you say, Mr. Sneddon, just a couple minutes ago that Michael Jackson's children are out in California? They're in Las Vegas, but does the law?
She answered your question for you.
She answered.
But does the law call for them to be taken into protective custody as a matter of course if his father is under arrest for molestation charges if he returns to California?
Not
If
necessarily.
they return to California?
Not at this point in time, no.
Wait a minute, you can have a father charged with sexual abuse of a minor and leave the children in the home with that father?
Everyone is innocent until convicted.
Is the child adult, a boy or a girl?
I'm not going to talk about that. Well, you can tell from the charges it has to be a child.
If the victim is the uncooperative.
Wait, hold on a second. Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Sheriff, I'm a little confused. If you had 70 guys out at this ranch, you didn't know where Michael Jackson was yesterday, and if you considered this to be a possible flight risk, why would you not have known?
We had an idea where he might be. That wasn't confirmed yesterday morning. Yesterday evening, there was additional information that came to our attention that he was coming back to the state of California. But beyond that, we have no additional information at this point in time.
Will you compel the victim to testify if he turns
Hold on.
uncooperative? Will you compel him to testify if he becomes uncooperative?
No reason to answer that question.
Mr. Sneddon, did you find anything you were looking for?
We're not going to comment on that. I will say this, excuse me a second, on the gentleman's question, I think the sheriff and I probably feel pretty comfortable saying this much. One of the things that, there's been a question about why so many people went there and why we were there so long. One of the things that you have to, some of you are familiar, just looking at the aerials, that's a pretty huge complex. And we were authorized by the court to go in and video inside and out all of the buildings on the premises. And just, if you can imagine how long it took just to complete that process. Beyond that, we're not going to talk about anything else that was done out there at the premises.
Hold on a second.
I'm sorry?
Will a youth BAP unlawful warrant to avoid prosecution warrant be issued if he does not return to California?
Of course.
Yes.
Mr. Sneddon, will you prosecute this yourself?
Investigation?
Mr. Anderson?
Will you prosecute this yourself?
Yes, but not by myself.
Okay.
There'll be another lawyer from my office assigned to the
Would you be
case.
the lead chair on a case like this? I know your retirement's coming up. Would this be the last big case for you?
Not necessarily. And I wouldn't be the lead attorney when I do things with people in my office, which I've done before. We do it as co-counsel, as colleagues.
Okay. Over here. Over here.
Anderson, have you sent sheriff's deputies to Las Vegas?
No, we have not.
Where have you sent?
We have been in communication with Las Vegas, but our personnel are not there at this time.
Does
Has
sheriff
this been an
surrender in
expensive?
California, or can he surrender it out of state? Can he surrender in Nevada?
I think the sheriff made that pretty clear where it was.
Is this going to be an expensive prosecution investigation for your county? And how are you going to handle that given the state's problem?
It's our job.
If Michael Jackson's watching this right now, or his people, your opportunity to tell him what you'd like, should he contact authorities immediately? What's your message to him?
Get over here and get checked in.
We would encourage him to turn himself in and cooperate with law enforcement.
The
Yes.
California warrants, were they homes? Were they-
Hold on a second. There was a question here.
The warrants served in Southern California, were they homes or were they businesses? Can you?
We're not going to comment.
Did you see the Brashear
Back here.
documentary?
Back here.
Gentleman back here.
You guys say that you're open to other possible victims coming forward. Do you have knowledge at this point of other possible victims that may be included in this?
No comment at this point.
How long have you been working on this case? How far back is this case?
It's just been an ongoing investigation. We're not going to get involved until giving you a timeline. I think I made that pretty clear.
Months or longer, anything?
Not going to talk about that.
Did you watch the documentary?
A long way to go before we get there.
Mr. Ned, can you just clarify, is there an actual deadline? Can you explain how the conversation went between
Michael Jackson's legal representation in your office? I know you're gonna only say certain things, but just give us a sense of, like, did they call you, did you call them? What was that how did that whole thing happen?
Well, it has already been reported, and as probably many of you saw, I talked to Steve Cochran at the gate yesterday afternoon for a brief period of time. Very cordial conversation. I know Mr. Cochran, Steve Cochran, from before and from some other things. We get along very well. And then later, yesterday afternoon when I got back to my office, the other gentleman called me. Again, we had a very cordial conversation. And beyond that, I'm not at liberty to disclose those conversations.
This person here, hold on, this person here, go ahead.
How's the victim doing, and are they getting any help?
I'm not going to comment on that either.
Okay, now your question?
It's a legitimate question, but we're not going to comment on it.
Could you just clarify, is there an actual time deadline before you would say Michael Jackson hasn't cooperated and we're going to go after him?
No, there is not. Well, yes, there is. I'm sorry. We're not going to tell you what it is. I thought you were going to ask me a different question. That's why I was thinking.
The lady in the...
Los Angeles media is a little leery because we waited for another celebrity to turn themselves in. So Los Angeles media tends to be a little leery if there's no deadline on when a person, particularly a celebrity, can turn themselves in. So that's why we were hoping to narrow it down.
Yeah, you're working in Santa Barbara now. You got to put away the past and get with the future.
Hold on just a second. This...
Around the world, everybody's going to be watching this case. For Glenn, it's a very big client and also big attorneys on their end. How confident are you that you're actually going to get a client to prosecute Michael Jackson?
No comment. They had big attorneys last time.
Mr. Smith, would you have allowed another individual accused of this kind of a crime to turn themselves in, or do you go after them?
I would say that my answer is the same as I gave before. We've done it before, and we do it again in the appropriate situation.
What is the appropriate situation for giving somebody extra time to surrender? What is the criteria that you use?
We're not going to get into that.
Sheriff, how long has this investigation been going on for? How long has this investigation been going on for?
We answered that already.
Did Michael Jackson get a fair trial here in Santa Barbara?
Why not?
Spark the
What
investigation.
exactly sparked it? Did you get a phone call? Did someone tip you off? I mean, you've been investigating this for 2 or 3 months. What led to this enormous, massive investigation and search yesterday?
Well, like in any other criminal investigation, we have to have someone who's a victim come forward and present the information to law enforcement. That's what begins the process for the investigation to start.
And when did that happen? 2 or 3
They
months
made
ago?
that to you
We're-
straight away, or?
We're not going to get into the
Did
timelines.
the victim come to you by himself or with his family? How did that come about?
You know, people have asked that now about 6 different ways, and I think it's pretty clear we're not going to disclose
Was the Los Angeles
any of
Police
that
Department
information.
involved in this case as well in serving the search warrants out in Century City?
No.
No.
Was there a hearing to seal the search warrants?
I'm sorry?
Was there a hearing to seal the search warrants?
No. Well, yeah, I guess there was. There was a judge, and there were people there, but it was, as is always the case when you ask for sealing, it's the information.
Hold on.
The information has to be put in the search warrant to justify it, and then the judge makes it. It's a judicial decision. It's not ours.
Yes, right here. Question.
It's well known that Michael Jackson is always surrounded by servants and bodyguards, and I'm not questioning your investigation. I'm trying to understand how the molestation of a child could happen with all those kinds of people around him all the time. Might you be filing charges against other people that work for Michael Jackson?
I can't comment on that at this point in time, but we are continuing a criminal investigation.
Sheriff. Have you questioned people close to Michael Jackson about their association with this victim that came forward?
I'm not going to comment on the specifics of the investigation. I'm sorry, right here.
Sheriff, are you going to be serving us members of the media lunch after this press conference?
You evidently don't know about our budget crisis.
Yeah, we have a budget problem.
Was there a child therapist involved?
No comment.
In the back here, in the back.
Procedurally, or for the DA, what's the next step after after he turns himself in? When is there arraignment? When is there hearing? What's the time frame?
I'm going to talk to you generically because these things, there is some give and take in these things, so I don't want anybody to take this as a absolute thing that's set in concrete. Ordinarily, let's just put this case aside and talk generically about situations where we've allowed people to surrender themselves before with their lawyers and get booked and fingerprinted, is that they are given, and if they make the bail that's set by the judge, then they are cited to appear in court on a certain date in the future, and that citation date can be anywhere from probably 30 days to 45 days. At that point, then the district attorney's office must have on file a formal criminal charging document at the time that the individual is brought or comes to court pursuant to that citation release. That is the initial date for appearance for arraignment, and as many of you who cover other notorious cases that in the past and that are going on in the future know, that in many instances the defendant and his attorney will appear for the first time and continue the arraignment and not enter a plea immediately, but do so at a subsequent date. That's generic. That's what happens generically. I cannot tell you what's going to happen at this point because Mr. Jackson is not in custody.
Does that mean
Question back here.
45 days to charge him from the date that, in this case, from the date that he surrenders? You don't have to file charges in 45 days?
Generically, in the scenario I just gave you, it gives us up to about 45 days if we seek to do that. It doesn't mean we have to.
And in your sense, in this case, on general sense, how long it'll probably take you?
I think I made it clear in the press release that we intend to do something very soon.
There's a question in the back here. Question in the back.
Will there be a condition of Mr. Jackson's bail that he not have contact with minors after he's taken into custody, if he makes bail, assuming?
That'll be one of the things that'll probably be brought up at the bail hearing, if there's a bail hearing.
Will you suggest that?
It's under consideration.
How do you
Can you
respond to those who say
characterize
you have a
this?
personal
Hold on a
vendetta
second.
against Mr. Jackson?
I'm sorry?
How do you respond to those who say you have a personal vendetta?
Well, I mean, I could tell you it's BS, but, you know, that isn't going to change people's observations, and I think the other way is if you want to check with people who know me, they know better than that. I got a life, you know, I got things I do and I enjoy doing. I'm not going to
Okay,
focus on this.
this lady back here.
How many days you gave to Mr. Jackson to give himself up?
No, we're not going to comment on that.
No, we won't
Can I
comment
ask
on
you,
that.
sir, how strong a case you feel you have, if you want to characterize it, and how serious are these charges in your mind against Mr. Jackson?
The first one I'm not going to answer because we never answer that. The second one is, I don't even remember the second part of it.
How serious do
We
you
wouldn't be here if we didn't think we were serious about
Gee,
this.
there's no
In the back.
serious allegations.
In the back, as a man who has spent his life focusing around kids that you have, two-part question. A, on a personal level, how do child molestation charges do that make you feel spending your life around kids and sports and coaching them? And B, what would you tell those kids that you coach now when they ask you about the situation?
Well, how do I feel? It isn't just people that I've been around and coached and families I've known and things like that. I think it's a devastating thing to a child this age. And I'm not talking about this case. I'm talking about any case. You know, there's an assumption that this is the only child molest case we handle. We handle cases like this all the time. It's a tragedy for the families involved and the victims involved, generically. So there's nothing different about that. And what I tell them is the same thing I would tell them if it was one of my own kids.
Okay. This gentleman over here.
Sir, is the investigative work basically completed, or is it a possibility we may see other search warrants executed in the near future?
It's not completed at this point. It's an ongoing investigation, and we're following up on information as we speak.
What about the search warrants? Is that a possibility?
There's always that possibility.
Sir, how
Yes.
long could Mr. Jackson go to jail for in total?
Well, it depends on whether or not he's convicted, number one, and number two, what he's convicted of and how many counts, and you know, all of those things have to be factored in. It could go from anywhere from 3 to 8 years, I think.
Have you ever heard of a child
Yeah.
molest case like this with a $3 million bail? Is that higher than normal, or how does it compare?
I would have to say that it's way up there. But not unprecedented.
How did you come up
And
with that figure?
I'm getting there. Patience. And I think that you have to understand that the function of setting bail is not simply a district attorney's request. It's a function of the judge and how the judge feels comfortable with the individual involved and the charges involved, because the judge is familiar with the allegations, having read the affidavit in support of the arrest and search warrants. And as you know, some of you, we had a case down in Ventura where somebody posted $1 million bail and took off, and they found him down in Mexico after a long search. So I think with that and other situations involved, I think that was factored into the judge's decision to set it at $3 million.
What have you done to prevent?
Okay, we're going to go here, this next question.
This is a two-part question. What exactly did you find at the estate, and can you just go back?
I think we're getting time to leave.
Yeah, it's about there.
That would help your case that you think was strong evidence, but also this law that you talk about that changed, if you could just maybe talk a little bit more about that.
We're not going to comment on the specifics of the case or what we found at the ranch. And the law has changed so that the victim will be required to testify even if there were a civil settlement of some case. There is no civil case at this point in time. Yes.
Special arrangements for Jackson's incarceration?
I'm sorry?
Have you made arrangements for Jackson's incarceration?
Not at this point, no.
Excuse me, there's a lady back here,
Right
way
here?
in the back. Yeah.
Last time you used the grand jury for investigative purposes, will you be using the grand jury for anything this time for
Gosh, it took a long time for somebody to get around to that one. Well, we haven't ruled anything out.
What do you say?
One more question was, you as well, I kind of asked it. Do you anticipate charging anybody connected to the child, perhaps the guardian or parent, who may have known something was going on?
We're not going to get involved in discussing anything about the case.
Oh, okay, and this
Not
lady
gonna
right here?
answer that either.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Our press information officer, Chris Pappas, has that information. So he's here in the room somewhere. So we'll get that to you. Hold on. Second part. Yes, that has been our past practice. So if and when that occurs, we will make that photograph available.
I want to make sure this is correct. Would it be fair to say, based on what you said before, that you have not ruled out charging other people? Is that a fair statement?
Yes, anything is possible.
Are you aware of other civil cases that have been handled outside of the media since '93 that were kept quiet?
Not to my knowledge.
Really?
Yes.
Well, yeah, I am.
You are?
Yeah.
How many?
Ask Diane, she knows everything about Michael Jackson.
How are you aware of those?
I read the papers once in a while.
Sheriff, can I ask
Hold on.
position be on cameras in the courtroom?
We've got a long way to go before we get there.
All right, this lady right here.
Probably different than yours when you were in there.
What's my choice, sir? Not my choice.
Can you tell us what would
Hold on,
All right, we're going to do two more questions and then we're out of here.
One right here.
I'm just curious if the parents of the current accuser were aware of the allegation against Michael Jackson 10 years ago.
What did she say?
I'm just wondering if the parents of the current accuser, if they were aware of the charges, or not the charges, the allegations against Michael 10 years ago.
I really couldn't tell you.
I couldn't tell you either. I don't know.
Last
question.
What do you say to parents who let their children go to Neverland Ranch on sleepovers? What is your...
My advice is don't do it.
None of our kids are there.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hold on, please.
Technical question.
Yeah, I understand. That concludes the press conference. I have some prepared statements. If you'd like to get copies of those, I'll make those available to you. Thanks for your cooperation.
Chris?
This is going to be interesting. Can we set up a line or something?
You should just throw them up in the air. Pull it out of the tank.
I have one of those. Yeah, I will.
Two different releases, so whoever's helping you make sure you get those to
Please, Sheriff, you handing them out, Dan?
Sheriff, news release over here.
Sheriff!
Two of them. Two. Thank you.
Sheriff!
One, please. Thank you.
Sheriff! Sheriff!
Standing over me.
Dan.
Try to make sure everybody gets a copy of each one.
Here's the other one. Does anybody need the second one?
Sure, why not?
We have a live shop pending.
I know. The second one? Second one.
I know, that's public radio. Let me wind up. Yeah, somebody. Okay.